Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 5 questions in about 10 minutes. And I'm very excited to welcome our guest today. This is Ronnie Daniel. He is the Director of Philanthropy with Who Lives right here in Utah, South Jordan, to be specific. Ronnie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. What would you like the audience to know about Who Lives?
Well, thanks, Sean, for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. Who Lives is a nonprofit that works to do clean water projects in developing countries. And so we spend a lot of time and resource bringing water to communities who need it. And we believe that when we bring in water, then we can help solve a lot of their healthcare problems and we can create a lot of opportunity. So many hours are spent fetching dirty water that makes people sick to 6 hours a day. I mean, just imagine what you'd do with 6 more hours in your day, right? If we can give that, then there's a lot of economic opportunity that arrives. And so the other thing is that we don't just walk in and give away water wells. We are involved in helping create sustainability, self-reliance. And so each of the communities we work with actually work to purchase the well. We do a micro loan up front so they can get the clean water, and then they pay that loan off over the next 10 months so that they then own the well and have that personal responsibility to keep it up and running. So it's a great organization. If any of your listeners would like to know more, they can contact me through you and or just visit our website at wholives.org and learn more about what we do.
Fantastic. Well, it's a great endeavor, a great project. I'm very excited to get to work with you a little bit more on that. I think it's a great endeavor of what you're trying to do. So good for you guys. Thank you for doing that. And again, thank you for taking time to be here. So, well, let's dive into the questions. This is always the fun part, is to learn a little bit more about leaders' insights into these questions. The first question. Now, Ronnie, knowing you, I'm sure you've never had a conflict with anyone before, but you're such a nice guy. But in the event that maybe other people have had a conflict, or maybe if you had a little disagreement with someone that has worked for you, or that you worked for them, or a collaborator, a coworker, whatever, how did you resolve that kind of a conflict, or how maybe did you help others resolve it?
Sure. So I think first and foremost, I mean, most conflicts I think can be avoided if there's clear communication going on and a clear establishment of expectations. I think typically when a conflict happens, one or both parties don't clearly understand what the expectation was, right? And so I think a proactive thing that we can do. But if that hadn't happened and there is a conflict, I think that's the place to start. Let's go back and review expectations and what each person understands about that and clarify and help each individual understand what the roles and their goals are in that process and answer any questions. I think I try to be calm in conflicts. I try to, rather than making it personal, let's actually identify what is it that you're upset about specifically and find out. And usually like I said, it's because I hadn't been clear in communicating to them up front, or they hadn't been listening, or whatever it might be. There wasn't a clear reception of what the expectations were. And so I think that in my mind, as I've thought about this question and different conflicts I've had, that's been the way that I've tried to resolve them, is going back to that basic question: what are the expectations, and then what can I do as a leader to make sure you have the resources or the training or anything that you need in order to do and fulfill the expectation.
Oh, that's great. Great advice to not only prevent, but how to handle it when something goes wrong. So setting clear expectations. I really like that. That's a great comment. Question number two, Ronnie, I'm sure you've heard the phrase that people don't leave jobs, they leave managers. What's one idea or tip or suggestion that you have for leaders to help them retain their talent a little bit longer?
This will sound kind of funny maybe, but I think you've got to really love your employees. And I mean, it's so much so that you're willing to develop a relationship with them and really, build them into the environment of your organization. I mean, typically you're going to spend a lot of money to hire someone and train them and get them up to speed. And if you don't also develop a relationship of trust with them, then you're going to have spent a lot of money because they're probably going to leave, right? And so I think back of all of the people that I've worked for that I've really loved to work for, is because I felt they cared about me. They not only cared about me as a person, but they cared about me professionally. They helped me get the things that I needed to improve my career over time. And so I've always tried to emulate that same philosophy in leadership roles that I've had, to make sure that the people who work for me know that I care about them and care about their work. I try to be as understanding as I can be about the various situations that they're in. I mean, we all bring baggage to our jobs, right? Our families or whatever going on, our health, but if you can be understanding of that and give people some space to be human, I think is really important. And part of that is going back to the answer to my previous question, is I think you can build that relationship of trust if there's clear expectations and that you've established your relationship based upon those expectations. I mean, everybody is getting paid to do something, right? And if they don't know what they're doing, they're going to be frustrated and you're not going to be happy with them. And so making sure that is very clearly understood. And then, as I said earlier, make sure they have the resources and tools to do their job effectively. Then people will tend to stay with your organization. I don't mean to brag about this, but I worked for the Alzheimer's Association in my last job for 8 years. And I was one of the only chapter executives around the country who was able to maintain my staff. I mean, I had incredibly low turnover over the 8 years that I was there, comparatively speaking. So I like to put that into practice. And I think if you go back and talk to any of the people who work for me, they would explain that that's the type of relationship that I tried to build. And based on clear understanding, based on trust, I think that's the only way that you can really have a long-standing team and make a big difference, or whatever your job and your profession is.
Oh, that's a great response. I really like the idea of whatever word you use, love, caring, empathy. There's lots of different words out there, and they all mean something a little bit different to each person. But just the idea that you care about your people, I think that is so incredibly important. And that will win over a lot of hearts and keep them around a little bit longer when, maybe the money might be a temptation, but what do they say? Love conquers all. So perhaps that's the way to look at it. So very good. All right. Question number 3. Ronnie, what ideas or tips do you have to help leaders build resilience in a team?
Yeah, I think you need to revisit on a regular basis what your organization's all about. I mean, we all have missions that we're all trying to accomplish something. I've spent my 32 years in the professional world in nonprofit, and so it's that might be a little easier to connect people to a mission of a nonprofit than the mission of a company who's trying to make money. But even in a company who's trying to just make money, there's a mission there. You're trying to make the world better in some way. And so making sure you can tie people back into that mission regularly. One of the things that I do now in my current role is I work with companies to help them establish a social responsibility program, because even a company that's not a nonprofit, employees today want to feel like they're making a difference. And so if some of the profits that the company is earning can be, given to a social aspect, something that the owners of the company care about or the employees care about, that makes people feel better about what they're doing. They know that they're giving back to some organization, and whatever that might be. Who Lives is a great organization to give to if you're interested in developing that. But that's I think the thing is, resilience is keeping people in your company for the right reason. If you're just cranking out 40 hours a week plus and you don't feel like you're making a difference, it's hard to be resilient. It's hard to come back every week and start that new week over. I think it's also important to make sure that you're spending that time communicating with your staff. It kind of goes back to the previous question. If you feel like they've got a good relationship with you and they trust you, then they're going to be more resilient in the work that they do.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you. Question number 4. Is there someone that you would like to recognize that has had a positive influence in your life?
Sure. So my first 16 years of my career, I worked for the Boy Scouts of America. And so it's a nonprofit, it's a national organization, and sometimes the Boy Scouts have the same challenges as other national companies have. You get into kind of there's a lot of red tape, or there's a lot of overhead, and people get frustrated with that. So in my second area of work, I was in Colorado Springs, and I had a new boss come in to take over the chapter or the council executive position. And the first thing that he did when he came in was demote me. And I
Hmm.
thought, oh my gosh, why? I've been working hard to try. We were without an executive director for a little while, and so I was really trying hard to keep things together. Thought that he would come in and recognize that and give me a promotion, but just the opposite happened. And so as he coached me and he built that relationship of trust with me, he said, "You're not ready yet to take on this responsibility of managing this team. The team doesn't respect you." And so he helped me over the next 6 months do some things that helped me develop relationships of trust with the rest of the team. And then eventually, because of the work I was able to do, he did promote me. And we developed this incredible relationship, but it was all built upon him being honest with me and developing a relationship of trust up front. And he's probably, I'd have to say, the very best person I've worked for in my career because of that ability to develop a relationship of trust with me early on and be honest. I mean, it's hard to be brutally honest with people, right?
Yeah,
But my view of what the expectations were and what his view as the person who had to make those decisions were very different. And so once we got on the same page, I was frustrated for a few days, for sure. I mean, nobody likes to be told that they're not ready for something when they think they are.
sure.
But he didn't just let me go and sulk in a corner. He took me under his wing, and he right away helped me learn some skills. He sent me to a course that was helpful to me, and it really showed me that he cared about me as a person, and helped me be a better leader down the road.
Wow, that's a great story because it demonstrates some real character in both individuals. You having the humility to say, okay, I'm not ready then I'll learn and have that teachability. And then of course him doing what you described, having that brutal honesty to say, you're not ready, but let me help you. And
Yeah,
that's in my view, that is such a great characteristic and quality of any good leader is to say, let me help you. Let me help
right.
you become better. I love that story. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Ronnie, last question. Tell us a little bit about your first job.
So again, my first job was working for the Boy Scouts. I started right out of college in Stockton, California, working there. And so my first job was called a district executive, and my job was to be responsible for all of the Cub Scout packs and Boy Scout troops in a certain territory. So it revolved around recruiting more boys to be in the program. It also included fundraising, which I didn't know that I would really love as much as I do. And that was my first foray into actually asking people to support an organization. And it also revolved around working with a lot of volunteers. And so those are the big things that I was responsible for. And I had another great person that I worked for there who helped me be able to learn those skills. And I learned something in that first experience of mine from a fundraising perspective, but I think this revolves a lot around sales. I mean, fundraising is really just another sales role, right?
Right. That's
But
right.
what I learned was that I wasn't fundraising; it was all about friend raising.
Mm.
And it was about connecting people to our cause. It was about finding those people who believed in the values of my organization and gave them a way and a reason to support that. And I believe a lot in the idea, especially from a nonprofit perspective, that I call them the three T's that we ask people to do for a nonprofit. We ask them for their time, we ask them for their talent, and we ask them for their treasure. And some people can give one, some people can give all of those three things. But if you can connect them to the mission of your organization and they get passionate about that, they're more than willing to give whatever they're capable of. And that's the other thing is I learned in fundraising is, it's up to the donor. It's not up to me what they're going to give to an organization. I just need to be the conduit and through which they can make their contribution. So that was my first job. And I went on to work for the Boy Scouts for 16 years, and then left the Scouts and moved back to Utah and worked for the Museum of Natural History at the University of Utah for a couple of years. I worked then for the Living Planet Aquarium and helped raise the money for that new facility there in Draper. It's not new anymore. I keep calling it a new facility, but it's been there for quite a while now. But
Right.
was really excited about that. And then I mentioned I work for the Alzheimer's Association and now for Who Lives. But over the last 32 years, I've been fortunate to work for organizations that I could build a passion for personally and understand the mission and desiring to bring as many people into those organizations as possible. And I feel really, really satisfied at the end of the day when I sit back and look at the difference I've made in not only the organizations but in the people that were connected to that. You've heard the story of the starfish story, right? Where someone's
Hmm.
walking on the beach and throwing in starfish, and the person says, "Well, that'll never make a difference. Nobody will save all of them, but it made a difference for that starfish, right?" And I
One.
feel that way. I've taken that approach, and if I can help one person have a better life because they were connected with something that I've done, then I feel like I've made a difference, right? And so
That's awesome.
that's what's motivated me throughout my career, and I've loved every minute of it.
Well, good for you. I like that approach a lot. I think that's a very good way to look at all things in life is to be connected. So very good. All right, Ronnie, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Give us your the Who Lives website one more time.
Yeah, it's Who Lives is who lives lives.org, and you can go there and learn all about our organization, the Village Drill, and the 10,000 wells that we've dug over the last 12 years, and the difference in about 10 million people's lives that we've made. So go out and check it out.
Fantastic. And so your LinkedIn profile also, it's Ronnie Daniel, no S. So make sure for all
Correct.
those who are
Yeah.
listening, make sure if you're watching or listening, either way, if you want to look up Ronnie, make sure there's no S on Daniels because it's just Daniel. So very
Just
good.
one of me, I like to say. So.
Very good. All right. Thank you so much. This is
Pleasure.
Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to subscribe or follow the podcast wherever you are listening or watching. Thanks so much for joining us today. Have a great day.